found his own kingdom and wore his crown upon a troubled brow.
Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian is an iconic story through and through. The themes, realistic and complex characters, the setting, everything about it is just magical. When this book was adapted for screenplay, the whole universe came together to ensure that it went well because a certain Austrian bodybuilder was cast in the lead role. The iconic Conan the Barbarian franchise has been a core memory for many of us, but what about the long-awaited sequel? Will the iconic duology ever end up becoming a trilogy as we were told it would be? Well, stay tuned to find out. Before we get into our explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. When did Conan change his last name from the Barbarian to the Destroyer? When you think of Conan the Barbarian, the first name that probably comes to your mind is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, you can't deny the appeal when 7-time Mr. Olympia comes on the screen all greased up and swinging a sword at the bad guys. I mean, think about it. We have Robert E. Howard's original book, which certainly left a mark on all of his fans due to its content. The original series was gruesome, bloody, and brutal. The concept of a young boy who saw his entire race turned into slaves and eventually wiped out, standing up against all odds that were stacked against him and making sure he got the life, the respect, and the glory he deserved is an awe-inspiring tale. And the Marvel comic series by Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith did the story justice. The violence, the grit, the resilience, all the things that proved to the readers just how much Conan struggled and how his brutal past had turned him into this barbaric killing machine was evident in every panel, and it was a ride. The true nature of this series is something that deserves to be well respected and cherished, and the original R-rated movie is just such a respectful take on the story. We saw Thulsa Doom, played by the phenomenal James Earl Jones, cruelly wipe out the Cimmerians and send their children into slavery. We saw the torture that Conan had to witness and how that affected him as a person. When he was the only Cimmerian left, he decided that he'd get revenge. After a lifetime of combat, warfare, and absolutely brutal slavery, Conan was a tough cookie to crack. He knew he had what it took to track the man who killed his entire race, and he was going to do it, even if it meant that it would cost him his very life. Vengeance is a truly powerful motivator though, and Conan is a primo example of this. On his quest to avenge his race, he met new people who he eventually came to trust and be friends with. We have Subotai the Archer, played by Jerry Lopez, the cunning thief Valeria, played by Sandahl Bergman, and of course we have his chronicler, the mandatory old and wise wizard, played by Mako. Together, this ragtag team of ruffians managed to infiltrate the appropriately named Mountain of Power where Doom resided, rescue a princess while they were at it, and kill every enemy that stood in their way. When you look at the poster of this movie, you see a muscle man holding a sword up in the air, and you might think to yourself, oh geez, he kind of looks like He-Man. But there was nothing PG about this movie. Even though the sword and sorcery trope was common in both of these iconic pieces of media, the two are absolutely polar opposites. Conan the Barbarian is a brutal film. You watch Conan go through each man, killing them with brutal efficiency, and you can truly feel the rage he has within his heart through the screen. In this movie, Conan has no remorse, whether it comes to killing people or assaulting all the women who come his way. He doesn't even shy away from hitting a camel. He might seem like an irredeemable character, and that is what makes him so glorious. We know he's tough, we know he's troubled, but somehow we all hope that he's going to be one of those heroes who, despite all the trauma they've faced, choose to be the better person, given whatever situation they might be in. But no, that's not who Conan is. And that's what makes him such an impactful character. He's rough around the edges, he has flaws. Does his past excuse his behavior? Absolutely not. But can we understand where he's coming from? Absolutely yes. Plus, given that Arnie isn't known for his impeccable dialogue delivery, it's great that he played a brutal killing machine of few words. His physique and the brutality of his action did justice to the source material. He is exactly what we thought Conan would be. Watching him on screen feels like the character jumped out of the pages and is right in front of you. And honestly, we loved it. Is this movie cheesy? Yes, of course it is. I mean, it came out in the 80s. What do you expect? But do we love it? Yes, we absolutely love it. It's such a good movie. Please go watch it. Now, obviously, as every die-hard fan of the series knows, Thulsa Doom is actually a villain of the Kull series by the same author, not the Conan series. However, it's very clear that Thulsa Doom is basically Toth Amon, the original villain of the Conan stories. Now, why did they give him a new name? It's hard to say. Perhaps it's because the name Thulsa Doom sounds really badass with the literal word doom right in it. Regardless, despite the creative liberties of the writers, the story of the movie remained basically the same, but that doesn't mean the movie didn't have its flaws. The action scenes may feel a bit too choreographed and sometimes very goofy, given everyone keeps body slamming against each other. Also, the visual effects weren't that good, but the movie did avoid most of those by focusing more on the sword action and less on the magic part of the sword and sorcery genre. Another thing that might strike you as odd when you watch this movie, if you haven't watched it, is that the big party that Conan travels with sometimes makes him feel like just a leader and not the main character, who the movie's literally named after. The movie's definitely a fun watch, and it became pretty popular as well. That's why after Conan the Barbarian of 1982, we got Conan the Destroyer in 1984. Here, Arnold and Mako came back, reprising their roles as Conan and Akira. But we also get new fan favorite Zula, played by the absolutely amazing Grace Jones, as well as new faces like Will Chamberlain, Olivia Diabo, and Tracy Walter. As Valeria had passed away in the first movie, this time around Conan agrees to go on a quest to get her back. The Queen Taramis of Shadazar promised him Valeria's resurrection after all. In this movie, we finally got Tothamon on screen, which definitely got us all excited. After all, he was the main villain of the Conan series for so long. Seeing him and Conan clash swords definitely got us hyped up. This movie ends on a very sequel-baity note as Conan refuses to marry Queen Jenna and goes away in search of his own kingdom. While this movie isn't as popular as the original, earning roughly half the box office of the first film, that doesn't mean it's not enjoyed or beloved by fans across the world. These two movies definitely cemented Conan as a well-respected character in the hearts of fans who wanted to see more of this barbaric killer. What happened to King Conan? After how well loved the series was, obviously fans were happy to hear the rumors regarding a third movie in the late 90s. It was supposed to be based on the story King Conan, Crown of Iron, and obviously fans were even more hyped up. But as Arnold Schwarzenegger was at the time rising in his political career, especially given that he was elected governor of California in 2003, plans for that movie kind of went down the drain. I mean, even if Arnold were to star in it, he clearly couldn't do it then and there given his governor duties. Warner Bros. Were still trying to get this project going though, because they really wanted the whole series to be done with while it was still popular. However, after 7 years and the project being handed from the Wachowskis to John Milius to Robert Rodriguez, the future of the project was looking bleak. In 2007, Millennium Films got the rights to the series, and they hired Marcus Nispel to direct the film in 2009. This eventually resulted in us getting the most forgettable 2011 Conan the Barbarian, starring Jason Momoa. Yeah, I had actually completely forgotten about that movie. The original John Milius picture is quite an epic saga, and there are so many things that fans love about those movies. We had world building like Mad Max, we had tremendous landscapes, and of course, given that there's not a lot of dialogue in the movie, it depended on visual storytelling, the age-old show don't tell. We got this epic story where we, the audience, watched a young boy grow up and become this brutal warrior who is willing to go on sadistic rampages to exact vengeance. Despite Arnold's shortcomings as an actor, in the 1982 movie, he's charismatic and the epitome of badassery, which rightfully catapulted him into fame. The second film was alright in comparison. Yeah, it didn't have the unique spark of the Barbarian, but the Destroyer was definitely out there destroying stuff. It was an action film with adventure and quite a few interesting characters, plus seeing Grace Jones play a strong female character is a feast for the soul. Sure, it's funny when she screams about seeing a rat, but everybody has their Achilles heel, right? We're not perfect after all. Maybe that's the lesson we can learn from Conan the Destroyer. So then, what went wrong with the 2011 Conan the Barbarian? Well, a lot of things. This movie can truly sap the life force out of people like a Dementor. I didn't even know it was possible. After watching the first 2 movies of the Conan series, this movie's just a letdown. It feels very generic. We have Conan, played by a very fresh-faced Jason Momoa, who became a barbaric warrior after his parents were killed by an evil warlord. This evil warlord, played by Stephen Lang, and his daughter, played by Rose McGowan, are the main antagonists of this movie. While on his way to avenge his father's death, Conan meets Rachel Nichols' character, who is also being chased by Stephen Lang's warlord. Small world, I guess. Together, Conan and the girl join forces, both as romantic partners and battle partners, to fight against the evil warlord and save the day. Now, I'm not saying that I hate this movie, don't get me wrong, it's just that it's awful and I hate it. Jason Momoa gave this movie his all. You can see that he's doing his best, but there's just not much material to work with. He has a certain charm as an actor, and of course his physique makes him a believable Conan. He never falters whenever there's a fight sequence, and he's definitely a badass. However, the material of this film doesn't do the character justice at all. The first 2 movies were almost Greek mythology-esque sagas of a boy growing up and creating his very own dynasty, and this movie feels like a lackluster reproduction of that. The CGI has definitely improved, and given this genre is sword and sorcery, the CGI did did pretty well in that department. The visuals in this movie and a lot of scenes are beautiful. You could almost take a screenshot of it and make it your laptop wallpaper. But that's about it. This movie doesn't have the unique bite to it that the first ones did. It feels like the writers of the movie had a bunch of plot points and character traits they had in mind, and then someone mistook it as the final draft and no one noticed. Like, why is Conan a handsome stud who's a good guy? Where did the barbarians go? I was promised a barbarian, and the only barbarian I got was on the poster. Where did his complex character arc go? I don't know, it's not here. The original is such an iconic piece of work because Conan is a flawed hero. Underlined, capitalized, and highlighted. Flawed hero. We're supposed to understand his beliefs and skewed morals. We're supposed to look at this barbaric character and go, yes, I can understand why he's like this. But this version of Conan is just your standard muscle man goody two-shoes. He doesn't have any complexity. He's your typical hero who, despite all the traumas, will always uphold his moral high ground. In my eyes, he's a pretty definitive Gary Sue. He doesn't really learn anything over the course of the entire movie. He's a cool guy who already has all the knowledge and character growth he needs to have. At one point, it seems like he needs to learn about the true strength of steel or something, but it's mostly forgotten in the movie, and you can't be bothered to remember it. The original movie grappled with Conan learning the error of his ways, learning how to make friends, and trusting other people, and all of these critical moments came in good time. That's what made us root for him. And in the 2011 film, we got, let me check my notes here. Yep, none of that. Jason Momoa himself is charismatic on screen, as I said, but some things can't be saved with just charisma. Stephen Lang, who's a great actor and a terrifying character in Hard Way, somehow seems bleak in this movie. What made him evil? I don't know, he just is. At one point, he brought up his dead wife, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe we'll get something along the lines of good people killing his wife off, and the normal guy becomes the villain. Maybe it was because I watched this movie right after I finished Castlevania, which, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check that out. But then, it turns out that Stephen Lang just wants his wife back, not because he loves her and misses her, because his wife is an evil witch and they want to do evil together. I mean, I guess that's romantic, in a way. Rose McGowan is memorable in this movie, but then again, for completely different reasons. I don't remember much about her character and the arc that she went through because of how bland it was, but I do remember that she had some very cool Freddy Krueger-esque finger knives. That's the most memorable thing about her. That's it. Overall, this movie was extremely generic and it didn't land well with the fans. It bombed the box office, grossing around $63 million when its budget was $90 million. You gotta spend money to lose money, right? Great business plan, guys. Is it really happening? King Conan or Conan the Barbarian 3? Obviously, Conan the Barbarian is a movie that a lot of us grew up with, and definitely we've been waiting for a sequel for a long time. In 1987, Arnold was supposed to return for the third movie in the series, but that never happened. However, there have been some exciting new developments, you guys. So in May 2023, Arnold Schwarzenegger decided to talk, albeit very cautiously, about the possibility of Conan 3. So apparently, this project has been put on halt for the past 10 years or so because the producer of the 2011 reboot, Frederick Malmberg, still owns the rights to this character. Unless the rights are sold for at least one or two movies, there's not much hope for the long-awaited Conan 3. At one point, Malmberg told Arnold that he had a contract with Netflix regarding the Conan project. However, when Arnold spoke with the streaming company, he was told that no such agreement was made. But that doesn't mean there's not going to be a Conan 3. John Milius, the original screenwriter, had already made a screenplay for The Legend of Conan. Given that the screenplay is written, we can hope for a new installment soon enough. The actor didn't give out any names, but he did say that there are directors who are eager to work on this project. Obviously, as long as this copyright issue remains, with Frederick Malmberg's unwillingness to sell the character, Conan the Barbarian 3 can't be confirmed. This whole project was hinted at back in October 2012, with Universal Pictures showing interest in bringing back Arnold for a movie titled The Legend of Conan. In 2014, we learned that Will Beal, Andrea Berloff, and Chris Morgan were working on a screenplay with Arnold as the titular Conan. Morgan was supposed to work with Malmberg to release this movie, and Arnold was especially looking at the New Zealand studio owned by Peter Jackson as location for the film. However, as we know, this movie never came to be because in 2017, Universal scrapped the entire thing. Morgan was understandably upset and tried to explain away the whole thing as a budget-related complication and doubts about a fan reception, but he didn't want us to lose hope, so he said that The Legend of Conan could very well be a TV show. Universal made it clear that they had no interest in a third movie for Conan, but Arnold was very much into this. And now, after quite a while, with the 2023 update given to us by the OG Conan himself, we feel just a little bit more hopeful. Cast details of the film. As this movie is far from confirmed, no one knows the confirmed list of characters. However, based on everything we know so far, we can say one thing for sure. Arnold will most likely come back as Conan in the third movie. While it's true that Arnold doesn't make a lot of appearances in his iconic movies that were turned into franchises, after seeing him in the last Terminator movie, we definitely have some hope. If Arnold can reprise his role as an aged Terminator, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to take on the role of an aged, seasoned barbarian. Plus, if you think about it, it would kind of come full circle too with the movie's timeline. Arnold broke into Hollywood fame playing this barbarian, so he has a lot of passion for this character and projects surrounding the Conan series. So having him come back as King Conan would be such a beautiful send-off, don't you think? Plus, this movie, if made, would be the biggest nostalgic piece of media. I'm sure they'd cash in on the nostalgia by bringing back a lot of actors. I wouldn't be surprised if Zula and Red Sonja return in the flesh, and James Earl Jones's Thulsa Doom returns in a hallucination. I mean, Red Sonja's actor, Brigitte Nielsen, came back in Creed 2 playing her Rocky IV role after a couple of years, so why can't she return here? Expected storyline of the movie. With the 2023 update, you better believe that we're pretty hyped up. Is it going to be a continuation of the past two films? Will it be a completely new story made from scratch? What kind of movie will it be? Got so many questions and so few answers. Since the first visions of the third movie, it was clear that this time it's supposed to be an introspective action flick. Here, we'll watch an aged character dwell upon the morality of the violence and havoc he caused in his younger days. I mean, Chris Morgan, back in the day when he was working on the project, said that he wanted Arnold to play his age, so this would be the right way to go. But now that we know John Milius has written a screenplay, what themes this one would focus on is completely up to speculation. I mean, will the sequel bring back the violence and brutality of the original movies? If it does that, then it has to follow the original storyline of Robert Howard's books. They have great source material, and I'm sure that by following it, they'd be able to surpass the originals by mixing the greatness of the 80s movies with the legendary world building of Howard's work. Or they could simply follow the comic books written by Roy Thomas. The first issue introduces us to Conan and his son Khan, who end up being kidnapped by warlocks. Seeing the seasoned barbarian be worried and caring for his son would definitely show us just how much he's matured. Or they could follow the 2021 comic series written by Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Asrar. In this comic, Conan grew restless after conquering the throne that he so desired. So, leaving everything he worked so hard for behind, Conan sailed west, and we get to follow his journey from Aquilonia, where a lot of new and old foes remain dormant, waiting for a chance to kill Conan. The possibilities are endless, and while it's very true that the project could bomb like the 2011 reboot, we're hopeful it won't, given the original screenwriter and actors are involved. Marvelous verdict. Conan the Barbarian is an incredible odyssey following the saga of a young man and his turbulent life. The books written by Robert E. Howard are rich and brutal, and the first two films did the literature and the character some serious justice. As Conan fans, we're excited to see what new adventures our favorite barbarian finds himself in when the much-awaited sequel finally comes out, if it ever does. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, if you think this movie's coming, what you think it's going to be about, if there's a particular story arc that you think would make for a good movie. We want to hear about it. That's all for this time, but until we see you next, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day. And of course, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already.